Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
Today, we're going to put a computer in your computer.
We're going to show you how to build a virtual machine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Know How, the show where we show you how to do things, like how to do them. I, as Akhtar, host of TNT and this show.
Yeah, I happen to show up here. They still haven't thrown me off for some reason.
I'm just along for the ride. I'm here to ask the dumb questions.
I appreciate that.
So what are we doing today? It's dumb question number one.
Today, we're going to be building some virtual machines on whatever you want.
You got a real machine. What do you need a virtual machine
Well,
for?
let's say we did a Linux episode, which we did a while ago, and you want to test out a whole bunch without doing live USBs or CDs or anything. You could build it into a virtual machine, put it on top of your regular operating system, and mess with it all you want. And there's so many cool features with it. So we really got to show you how to do that.
So, for instance, you got a Macintosh. You could run Windows inside the Macintosh in a virtual machine. So it looks like you're running Windows, but it's actually a window inside on the Macintosh desktop.
Yeah, and the great thing is there's a free solution out there called VirtualBox. So
that's the software you need.
And there are other paid solutions. So there's some features you'll give up if you're going with the free solution, but this is a really good way to start off if you want to try out virtual machines.
So as my job as the transcriptionist here,
yes,
we're going to do a VM, that's what they sometimes call it, or virtual machine. You know, it's funny, they just had the big VMware conference here. That is one of the big commercial virtualization. Microsoft has their own, it's called Hypervisor. I use one called Parallels on the Macintosh. But the one we're going to recommend is free and open source. It's called
VirtualBox.
From Oracle. It's from Sun. Okay.
Well, Oracle still owns it right now.
Yep. Well, they bought Sun, right? So they got everything, including VirtualBox. And I love it because this runs on Windows, Linux, and OS X.
You might want to put a little squiggly line under virtual there, since you spelled it wrong.
VIRTUAL. Oh, up here it's Vert Hall. I was distracted. I
always expect that when I write on paper. I'm expecting Microsoft Word to show up in the middle of something.
Misspelled. Yeah, so VirtualBox, and this is free from virtualbox.com?
.org, I believe. Virtualbox.org. We'll have a link in the show notes. And it's free, absolutely free. It runs on OS X, Windows, Linux, and Solaris.
There it is.
So you can run it on any other computer really easily, and that'll be your host computer, and then you have your guest computer.
So what is that the opera? What is that? What does VirtualBox do?
Well, VirtualBox allows you to create a virtual machine. So you're going to end up giving a home to another operating system with VirtualBox.
It appears to the operating system we're installing as if it's just a blank disk. It's a whole new machine, but it's really running on another computer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we're also going to need, obviously, we're going to need a PC or a Mac.
All right. So we need a computer.
Definitely, you're probably gonna need a computer because otherwise you're kind of out of luck. You could try to make a virtual machine without a computer. Let me know how that goes. I have never tried that before.
That would be a truly virtual machine.
Very virtual, very conceptual kind of thing.
So it doesn't matter if it's PC, Mac, or Linux.
And you're gonna need a guest operating system. So you can download Linux, or you can go ahead and you're gonna have your Windows disks, whatever you have.
And that's an issue because if it's Windows or OS X, you're gonna actually have to buy it.
Right.
But if it's Linux, if it's a free operating system, then you don't have to buy it. So we're going to need our, what did you call it?
A guest operating system.
Guest OS, okay.
Yeah, so either a pre-made version, because there are pre-made VMs out there, an ISO, or the original disk you have of Windows or whatever you have.
All right.
So what we're going to do today, though, we're going to try out Chrome OS, because this is something
Wait a minute.
that normally only ships on Chromebooks and Chromeboxes.
You can run Chrome OS on a Mac?
Yes, you can. And you can actually try it out. So so if you wanted to experience what that's like, effectively it's a browser OS, but it's fun to try out different things because are you going to buy a Chromebook or do you want to try out Chrome OS this way?
And this is basically it's based on Linux, so it's free. It's easy to do. All right, good. This is good. And it's also lightweight. One of the things to remember with a virtual machine is you're sharing the resources of the computer you're on. That means not only the CPU, but also the memory and the hard drive. So it's not going to run as fast as if it had the whole thing to itself. It's going to, you know, have to share.
That's a great way to test things. And if you like it later on, you might want to install it as your primary operating system on another machine or anything like that.
The good news is modern Intel chips are designed for virtualization. They have a very quick task context switching. So it means that virtualization runs very well on modern Intel devices, much better than it used to. It used to be you'd run a virtual machine and it was really
clunky.
slow and unusable. Nowadays, it's I would say it's 80% of the full speed. I mean, it's very usable.
The first thing you're going to do is you're going to download VirtualBox from virtualbox.org. It's free. It's really easy to get. Then you want to run the actual software. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new virtual machine right now.
So this is VirtualBox running.
Right now, yep. Let me just.
So the first thing you'll do in VirtualBox is say New.
We're going to hit New. Welcome to the new virtual machine wizard. So this is really simple. There's a wizard to help you out throughout the whole thing. And we're going to say we're going to do Chrome OS. And we're going to change this to Linux, and you can do Ubuntu. It works fine. Let me change that back to Ubuntu.
So, by the way, if you don't have exactly the OS you're going to use, it's okay. It's good to get close if you can, and you'll see why in a moment.
Right. So
but often, for instance, when Windows 8 first came out in the consumer preview, most virtual machines didn't have Windows 8, so I used Windows 7 and it worked just fine.
So what we're going to do is we're going to just keep going through the wizard. We're going to allocate RAM.
Here's that shared part, right? So we only have a certain amount of memory. How much are you going to give the virtual machine?
I'll give it 512 megabytes of RAM. You can go
It's not a lot, but I guess Chrome OS doesn't need much.
We could test it out. That's the other thing. We can tweak this as we build machines. We can say, hey, you know what? Maybe I want to see what kind of hardware I can get away with when I install it on some other machine. So you can test this out with the slider.
But notice this is a 4 gig machine, 4 gig of memory machine. We can't go bigger than that. In fact, we really don't want to go bigger than maybe 2 gigs.
I don't want to choke the actual machine. So the virtual machine is only going to get 512 megabytes. I'm going to be stingy. And what we're going to do, though, with Chrome, luckily, there is a fellow named Hexy. He created a pre-made VM of Chrome. So what you can do is you can download this directly from, we'll have a link on the show notes.
So this actually will be seen as VirtualBox as if it created it itself. What he did is he created it in VirtualBox and saved it, right? It's a snapshot.
Yeah, so if you're going to...
Normally, you would actually have to install the operating system just as you would on a computer.
You can set up a generic machine to install a operating system later, but to show very quickly how this works, I wanted to show Chrome OS.
Yeah, just, you know, when you do it in Windows, what you'll see is that you'll run VirtualBox and you'll see a blank screen just as if it were a brand new computer with a blinking cursor and says, I don't have an OS. And you would put in either a CD image or an actual CD and say, here's the OS, and it would install it just as if it were a blank computer installing an operating system. In this case, they've already done all that.
Now, the builds are done nightly, by the way, so you can get...
this is great.
Yeah, so you're getting updated versions of Chrome OS if you want. And he also includes versions for a USB key, so if you wanted to try that out, you could too.
So do you have to do the new and all of that stuff before you do this, or can you just open that VM that you're downloading from Chrome?
Well, I don't think you can open it directly. You're going to have to just...
You can, okay. Yeah. So you still have to create a virtual machine for it to use.
So I'm going to try to get this open into this drive. Let's see, Chrome VDI.
VMware does a lot of these. They call them appliances. In fact, Microsoft used to do this too, where you would be able to...
Okay, so you can't have the same name for you can't have 2 VMs with the same name. That's what's going on right now. Yeah, so I got to change the name of this.
What happens is kind of interesting is that VirtualBox is actually going to just create a giant file that will be seen as the virtualized operating system as its hard drive. So you get to choose how much space am I going to give it, 10 gigs, 20 gigs. Most virtual machines will automatically resize those as needed. That's nice because that file is the operating system. Trash it, you're throwing it away. You don't have it anymore. You can also make a copy of it. So this is really handy if you want to kind of play with stuff. You're worried about spyware or malware. If malware gets on it, trash the infected virtual machine, the file, and use the new one.
Naturally, because I'm trying to do this on the air, it's completely failing. So let's try this again. We're going to have to edit this part.
It's not exactly a partition drive. It actually is just a file on the regular hard drive operating system.
Let's try this again. Not OS 2.
Yes, somebody in the chat room is pointing out that it's not just Intel chips these days that have built-in virtualization. Of course, so does AMD. It's kind of a necessity in the modern age. And by the way, this is using virtualization as a consumer. There are a lot of business uses for this. If you go to Amazon's EC3, it's Elastic Computing, or Windows Azure, very often when you put an operating system on there, that's exactly what you're doing. You're running a virtualized version of the operating system on their servers.
Now, the problem I ran into right now was simply because I had already installed Chrome OS in this VM VirtualBox manager. And what happens is it's trying to create a new directory, and if it has the same name, it runs into problems. So I remove that directory, and everything's fine now.
From scratch.
Yeah, start over again, and now
that's what you get for rehearsing. No more rehearsals.
How dare I try to make sure it works ahead of time? I hit create, and now.
Why, in my day, we would just do it.
That's
Patrick Norton would come out there and say, I've never tried this before. Let's see what happens.
There's a reason why I had to try this before, because there's some tweaks we have to do to this actual Chrome OS. So I'm going to start.
By the way, he rehearsed more than anybody.
I'm going to start the.
So that window there, that's the little virtual computer.
Right. So we're going to hit OK, and you're going to see we're going to run into a problem right away as Chrome OS is trying to start up. Now, let's see.
Okay, it resizes the window.
Yeah, so it's going to start up Chrome OS, and if you've never tried out Chrome OS, again, it's Google's operating system. And so we're going to go ahead and try to go into here. Now, you see the mouse isn't working, which is good, because there's some tweaks you have to do. You got to go to Machine, disable mouse integration, then you click into the window, you can hit Capture. All this information above in the little dialog box tells you that the mouse is going to be captured when you are inside the virtual machine. So you can't remove it unless you hit, in this case, the left command button on your keyboard. So
you see why this happens. The Macintosh that you're running on has to be told, no, you don't have access to the mouse. It's in the Chromium window right now. Now, the good news is on most commercial virtualization packages, I thought VirtualBox did it too, there's usually some additional software you could install once you've got your operating system running, your virtual operating system running. In fact, that's why you have to tell it which operating system you're going to use. So they have Windows versions, they have versions for Chrome, for Linux. These are tools that will actually allow it to work more seamlessly. So you can move the mouse back and forth from each window. You can copy and paste from one operating system and the other. And of course, it also allows you to size the windows a little bit more intelligently. Otherwise, the host operating system can get very confused.
Yeah, one of the things you have to do when you're setting up Chrome OS in this virtual machine is you have to go into your network settings. So you got to go into Settings.
So it doesn't have tools like for Chrome? Maybe not.
No. Well, so here's the issue when I started
guest
this.
editions,
it
right?
did not understand where the network adapter was. So I had to go into network and change this to Intel Pro 1000 MT desktop, because
that's the network that's being simulated by the VirtualBox.
That way, because it's Chrome OS, right? Chrome OS does not work without a network connection, so you need to have that running. So this, again, this will be on the show notes. So you set that up, you hit OK, and then we can go right back to our VM. We're just going to continue. See that.
What's great about virtualization is generally it's simulating a very generic PC. So it's usually pretty straightforward to get all the hardware working. It's not seeing the actual networking hardware. It's not seeing the actual webcam. It's seeing a virtualized webcam. And the virtualization software can say, no, it's an Intel PCR 1000, even though it's not really. It's simulating that.
So we're going to go into Chrome OS. We finally got it running. We're going to hit sign in. Don't forget, you're going to use your Google identification credentials here.
Wow, I can't believe it's working so well.
It is working. We're going to tell it a picture. I'm going to be a puppy dog.
This looks just like Chrome OS.
This is Chrome OS. So if you ever wanted to try it out for free, you can. That's the thing. And like, you can find out if this is the experience you want to have. So this is running, and it's showing you all this. It's working fine.
You can see it feels fairly snappy. It doesn't feel too slow.
Right. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's how you do Chrome OS.
Now, were there guest editions in VirtualBox for Chrome OS? The guest editions, and they use different names in different virtualization software. VMware calls it the VMware tools. I can't remember what Parallels calls it. But those are programs you run once you've installed the guest operating system that tell the guest operating system a little, how to interact with the host operating system.
Yeah, VMware.
There's no guest editions on there.
There is a special package you can add to VirtualBox that'll help the mouse integration and things like that.
Yeah, it just makes it easier. It's not required. But for instance, I like to go full screen when I'm running Windows 8 on my Macintosh, because then it really looks like it's a Windows machine, and it just feels like it really is. In order for that to happen, you have to install those special tools.
Yeah, it's under Devices, then Install Guest Editions, and that's the way you can add things.
Can we show his screen just so?
Yeah, so it's right over here, and of course we're going to see
Devices.
Enable. You have to do this in a different time, but
it may also be that they don't have it for Chrome OS. I wonder, because it is OS specific.
Mm-hmm. So by the way, again,
that's amazing.
there's a lot of steps when it comes to doing this, and the wizards help you out a lot. But if you're watching this episode and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what happened, we have lots of show notes. Trust me, I've written them out myself. They're going to be available at twit.tv/kh. You can follow the instructions step by step by step. And if there's any tweaks I need to make on that, send me an email at knowhow@twit.tv.
Question from our chat room. Can you use your USB devices with the virtual OS?
You can use your USB devices. I've been able to use a mouse or two. I haven't tried it with webcams. I have seen some issues with that in the past with
Depends if it
other
has
machines.
drivers or not.
But we could set up a generic one right now, because why not?
Why not? Generally, when you install a virtual OS and then plug in a USB device, what will happen is you'll see a pop-up that says, okay, who do you want to have control? Only one OS can have control of this device. Do you want it to be Chrome OS, or do you want it to be the native Macintosh OS? You click a box, and from then on, that device has the USB device. It works the same way with CDs, DVDs, and so forth. Only one at a time gets to access it, and you have to decide ahead of time which one.
So if you don't have a pre-made VM, by the way, and there's a lot.
That was nice. That was fast.
There are a lot of pre-made VMs out there. If you want to try out, try them out. They're available at Oracle's site. We'll have a link as well for that in the show notes. But we're going to create a generic machine. We're going to put it in Ubuntu because I like Ubuntu.
I just want to underscore, everything we're doing here is free.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Now,
all open source software.
The limitations on the free software with VirtualBox is you don't get the same unified experience. Like VMware has they have their version of virtual machines.
Well, I'll tell you why I use VMware on Macintosh to run Windows. It has all the drivers support. And most particularly 3D graphics card support. And that's often a problem where you don't get very good 3D graphics card response. VMware does a good job of that. In fact, it did such a good job. Without it, you couldn't get Aqua in Windows 7.
Arrow?
Arrow. I mean, Aqua is what
Aqua's
called. The Arrow interface, and you can glass and all of that in VMware with the right tools. So that's pretty sweet. I mean, it really does a nice job.
Yeah, and VirtualBox, you're going to keep everything in that one window. You're not going to be able to pull apps and Windows out of it. That's just the way it is. But VMware Player, they allow you to do different things like that.
You know, it's kind of funny. Microsoft does on one version of Windows 7, I think it's is it the Pro or the Ultimate version, offer Windows XP virtualization for compatibility reasons. If you were using Windows 7 and you had old software that could only run an XP, they would actually simulate XP. And this is exactly what they were doing, virtualization.
So if we can go to my computer, we can show we're setting up a generic machine, going to say Ubuntu version 3, because I've done this a couple of times.
And you are going to choose Linux and Ubuntu in the drop-downs there.
Right, so we're going to hit continue. We're going to create a new hard disk, because we don't have a pre-existing one.
This is that big file that will look like a hard disk to Linux. And
as you can see, again, this is all wizard-based. It's really easy to use. I mean, I remember these weren't
What is
this
this we're looking at? I've never seen this. There's certain kinds of disks that we can have.
Right, virtual disk creation wizard. Now, you don't have to use the VirtualBox disk image format if you don't want to.
I see.
You can use ones that are compatible with Parallels or VMware as well.
Oh,
so
that's nice.
You have options when it comes to this. So we're going to hit continue. We're going to say dynamically allocate actual storage. And when you're setting up Ubuntu, especially...
That's dynamic is what I was talking about, where it'll size the drive, the file as needed.
VMware's actually, I mean, VirtualBox is going to suggest how many gigabytes you allocate right now.
Right.
Ubuntu needs at least, I think it's 4.4, so I'm going to give it something huge like 8 gigabytes. Why not?
If you make it bigger than it needs to be, you might be wasting space, although most of these are pretty good about doing kind of a scarce drive where it uses only as much as it needs right now and expands it as needed.
So it gives you a summary, tells you, okay, this is what you're going to create. We're going to hit create. And then it's telling you again, you're going to create a new virtual machine. Sure, that's great. Now, when you first start up this VM, here it is, Ubuntu version 3. I'm going to hit start. I was going to say, welcome to the first run wizard. Again, it's really, really simple. I'm going to hit continue. Now, if you have a disk for Ubuntu, this is where you would tell it it's in that drive.
You could either use an ISO file or actual DVD.
We're going to select Ubuntu 12.04.
That's the easiest thing. Then you don't have to burn it to disk or anything. It's just a file.
So then it starts going. So you can start installing it. You can actually run it live if you wanted to, right, in this virtual machine.
This is just like a little PC that's booting up and installing Linux. That's pretty cool.
I'm going to turn this one off because I don't really need to do that because we've already done this. So let's actually open up Ubuntu and show you something that's really cool about virtual machines, snapshots. Okay, so let's say you want to try out a new application or something, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to muck up my system. Well, if you're running it in a virtual machine, you can actually make a snapshot of that state. And let's say that app mucks up your system. You can go backwards.
I love this.
So it's going to open up snapshot 1.
This is the chief benefit, actually, of virtualization, I think, besides the fact that you can run other operating systems under your native operating system, is that this snapshotting means it's very easy to revert to the original state.
So yeah, so this is running on snapshot 1 for me. Like you can see, you can go machine. Let's say I want to say, okay, I want Firefox open for this particular case, machine, take snapshots. You can take a snapshot, name it, and then you can bring it back to that state anytime you want. That's going to be available in your VirtualBox manager. It'll be under snapshots. Let's see here. Scroll it over, snapshots. So you can actually just go back. Like if I want to go back to when I had Office open, I can go do that.
I think it's a really nice feature.
Yeah, so you can do that. Well, you have to turn off your machine first before you go back to the snapshot, but it's pretty simple. So it's got a lot of features, especially for a free piece of software. It's hard to beat VirtualBox, especially since it runs OS X, Windows, Linux. So whatever you want to do, you can do that here.
Good, that's it, huh? So let me run through it. We're going to make a virtual machine, which is an operating system of one kind running in virtualization on another one. Windows running on a Macintosh, Chrome OS running on Windows, that kind of thing. What do you need? Well, we recommend you get the free open source software from Oracle. It's called VirtualBox from virtualbox.org. And then, of course, you're going to need a computer. It could be a PC, Mac, Linux. I left out Solaris. It could even be Solaris. And finally, you'll need the OS that you're going to install. If it's Linux, it's as simple as downloading an ISO from a Linux distribution site. Many people make pre-built virtual machines. That makes it even easier. You don't have to do any installation. You can just download it, run it, and you're good to go.
Now somebody's asking in the chat room, why would I need to do this? The reason why you would do this is because you want to try out different operating systems. Maybe if you want to build a machine. This is how I end up using this. Now I will tweak how much RAM I can put into a machine. I will tweak the resources I give it, because then I can determine what's the minimum requirements for me when I build my other machine. Because then I'm like, oh yeah, it works really well if I use 2 gigabytes of RAM. But what if I scaled it back? How little can I get away with? And you find out things like that when it comes to this. Plus, it's all sandboxed. So you can mess with this all you want. It's not going to mess with your host operating system.
That's really important. If you get malware on one operating system, it won't go back to your main operating
you can restore it back.
It's also, and mostly this is why I use it, the only really good way that you can run Windows on a Macintosh or Linux on Windows, that you can run one operating system on top of another operating system for compatibility reasons. People often run Windows XP on Windows 7 in a VirtualBox, run those Windows XP apps. You could even run DOS in a VirtualBox if you want.
Some people do that for gaming.
Absolutely. So it's for compatibility, to test, to practice, to build, and if you just want to have cross-platform capabilities, it's the easiest way to do it. I run a virtual machine on my Macintosh all the time so that I can run Windows whenever I need it.
There are a lot of applications that are specific to Windows, or they're specific to other operating systems, and you want to be able to access them. So the other reason is because you can. I mean, I used to do this because it was fun. When I first saw a VM, it turns out I was working at a government agency, and they're like, all our servers are in that one machine. They had one box, and they had 5 different VMs running in there because they were taken care of in case something went wrong. And I've been fascinated with VMs ever since. So this is why you would do it. It's a lot of fun.
Now, technically, and there are people who've done it. I think there was somebody referring to a Lifehacker article that says you can run Macintosh OS X on Windows over Apple's dead body, of course, because it's a violation of their terms of service. You're supposed to run OS X on Macintosh hardware only, and it's going to take a lot of tweaking. Maybe that's kind of a Hackintosh.
Yeah, Hackintosh. Hackintosh VM is likely to happen.
Would know how to do that.
We might know how to do that. Actually, that's the fun thing about this show. You know, we got some emails from you guys, and we really appreciate them. So you guys are throwing us show ideas, and I'm loving that. So knowhow@twit.tv. Larry wrote in. He said, if you guys can get to it, can you go through the process of installing a TV tuner in your PC? Like, sure, why not? And he wants to be able to access those videos on a Roku. Definitely. Sounds like a great idea. Vernon wrote in, and he wants us to try out a home VoIP phone network. He tried it with Asterisk, and it didn't really work too well.
Asterisk is pretty hard to set up.
Yes, it is.
But there are easier versions of Asterisk that make it pretty straightforward. I think that'd be a good project.
He wants to see an episode about using home VoIP that included Google Voice, Skype, and other protocols to have a whole home system. I actually have that in my house.
Do you?
Yeah, I don't bother with traditional landlines, or I don't have it through my cable company either.
That's great.
So yeah, I definitely could show you how to do that. But yeah, so thanks for writing in, guys. These show ideas, I've been going through a whole bunch of them. I'm tagging them. I'm seeing what you guys are clamoring for. That VPN episode is coming soon, but next week.
Well, this isn't going to take very long, so maybe we could do a little mini episode and then do something else. We were talking about this, I think, on Mac Break Weekly. Other World Computing, macsales.com, sells an upgrade solid-state hard drive for the MacBook with Retina display. And this was something that iFixit said, hey, you can't upgrade the MacBook Pro with Retina, you can't take it apart, you can't recycle it, it's all glued together. Turns out it's a really easy thing to do. So maybe next week, it won't take very long, it's not a whole half-hour episode. I'll show you how easy it is to open up your MacBook Pro with Retina display, take out the old solid-state drive, and put in a new high-capacity, high-speed solid-state drive. I bought the one from Otherworld Computing, and it works great.
It sounds like fun. Getting our hands on hardware is always more fun,
Yeah.
I think. The software is great and everything, but I love messing with actual hardware.
There's some problems. You need a special screwdriver, things like that, but we'll show you how you do it.
Well, if you've got episode ideas, feedback, any suggestions, give us an email at knowhow@twit.tv, or you can send us a voicemail at 408-800-KNOW.
That's easy.
Yeah, really simple. So now that you know how to build a virtual machine,
Go out and do it, will you? Thanks, everybody. See you later.